Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I wanted to talk about Rick Grimes, and I actually wanted to talk about his potential death that could actually happen at some point in the future here. I've been meaning to get to this video for a while, ever since The Ones Who Live ended, and yeah, I wanted to get into this here because obviously if you saw the ending of The Ones Who Live, it did set up a lot of stuff that, would set up Rick Grimes' death, and also there's some stuff there with Major General Beale's son as well. There's a lot of things in World Beyond. Honestly, if you go back and rewatch World Beyond, and I went back and rewatched the last 2 episodes of season 2, and there's quite a bit in that season where I'm like, wow, there's actually a lot more context to what's going on in The Ones Who Live, and it's kind of insane to think about what's happening there in general. And I find it very, honestly, the more and more I watch stuff like that and I look at The Ones Who Live, the more I realize how much The Ones Who Live really did ignore in terms of what they were setting up for the last couple of years. But anyways, so before we go any further, obviously make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. But let's just get into this here. So obviously The Ones Who Live ended with Rick Grimes killing Major General Beale and basically bringing the CRM to some sort of, I guess peaceful state, right? And now the CRM is going to focus on helping people and whatnot, and Rick Grimes, I guess, in a sense, will be, working with the CRM to help deliver resources to people. I know that Denai Guerrera, and this isn't really necessarily confirmed or actually a part of the show, but as of right now, I think we can sort of assume. But Denai Guerrera was asked after the finale, if there was going to be a season 2, and if you are going to be doing like a new series or something like that, what would Rick and Michonne be doing right now, like hypothetically? And she answered, and again, she really didn't want to answer it because obviously just for the story of season 2 or whatever they plan to do next, but she said hypothetically anyways, they would feel obligated to actually help out people. So they're probably going to be doing that, delivering resources to communities, just helping out people all around. And, but also, you sort of have to focus on like your family life and all of that, right? Which is what they're going to be focusing on as well. So it's going to be both, right? They're going to be doing both things. And in that sense, everything just kind of ended peacefully. But the thing is, with The Walking Dead, nothing ever ends peacefully. That's the thing. And because we know we're going to see Rick and Michonne again, because we know where the story is going to be going in the future, I think that this sort of, and also because Major General Beale died and he does have a son that we saw in World Beyond, who was a pretty big character in season 2, I just think that this really does set up a future where Rick Grimes could actually get his comic death. And it's actually so perfect. It's actually kind of insane how much or how well they really set this up here. So Beale, he has a son. His name is Mason Beale. For those that don't know, he was introduced in World Beyond, and he became a pretty big character in that show. He gets captured at one point, and then Jadis is trying to find him and all of that. And that's what I mean. There's a lot of stuff like that was very cool, that when you watch The Ones Who Live, you're like, wait, why is Major General Beale just ignoring the fact that he has a son? Like, why aren't we learning any more about his life? Like, what is his life like? He doesn't even mention that he has a son in the show. Like, there's so much in that show that they really just ignored. And that's why I think a lot of people are saying it feels rushed, because they really did ignore quite a bit of stuff. And I think that's one of the most unfortunate things about Major General Beale, is that there was so much there and they just rushed it, and they really did ruin his character to the point where I just think his character really isn't that big of a character in the Walking Dead universe. And I think that his son might have more of a significant impact overall if they were to do like a new series or like a season 2, and if he does take, Sebastian's role from the comic. So the reason why I'm relating the two here is because in the comic, Rick Grimes does die, and he dies during the Commonwealth arc. Basically, he's trying to bring peace to the Commonwealth, and a lot of people agree with what he's doing. And this upsets Sebastian, because obviously Sebastian Milton at this point is like, well, my family's losing all their power, this and that. And Pamela Milton has really no say anymore. So basically, it's the same ending as The Walking Dead. Obviously, in The Walking Dead, though, Sebastian already died, right? So a little different, but basically, everything seems to be more peaceful. Rick Grimes seems to be, maybe the new leader, maybe they're going to elect a new leader, but basically in his sleep, or I guess he just kind of wakes up and Sebastian goes in his room and then just kills Rick Grimes just like that. And he wants revenge for what Rick did to the Commonwealth and to his family and all of that. And that is sort of the end of Rick Grimes. He becomes a walker, and that's just that. And it's honestly a very, very shocking ending. I wasn't expecting it. I really wasn't expecting it. It just kind of happened out of nowhere. And that's where I think you can easily see the next part of the story being that Rick Grimes killed Major General Beale. He brought peace to the CRM. He brought peace to a lot of people, But there's someone who's going to be very, very upset about that, and that is Mason Beale, right? He's going to be very upset about what Rick Grimes did, and is going to want revenge, for what happened to his father, Major General Beale, right? And so that's why I think that this story arc isn't over, because if they just kind of ignore that, honestly, that's, in my opinion, kind of bad storytelling, because like what, his son's just going to be out there now and just like forced to accept the fact that his father was just evil, I guess, and like ignore the fact that he was murdered and like just literally ignore all of that. Like I don't see how that can really be the case. I just think that it makes sense that the CRM arc isn't over yet. And I think this is really honestly what could happen next. I think that Mason Beale could get revenge in some way and actually kill Rick Grimes. And that could be Rick Grimes' ending here, which eventually means that we would get Rick Grimes' statue, right? Because in the Commonwealth arc or in the Walking Dead comics at the very end, after his death, they actually, they made a statue of Rick Grimes. I think they could do the exact same thing here. And I think it would be really incredible to have a statue of Rick Grimes. And I think that a lot of people would question, like, well, could you kill Rick Grimes off, this and that? I think now you can, right? I think before The Ones Who Live's ending, you couldn't, because it would have just felt like, Andrew Lincoln even said that, I think it was him, it would be too cruel or whatever. Like everyone waited for years and years to see Rick. Then all of a sudden his story ends, with him, I guess, dying, right? Like it would just be kind of like, wait, what? After he just basically died, right? So he was always going to survive. But I think because you gave that ending there, I think that, the next ending could easily be that he dies. Because I just think that, yeah, it just opens up the door to do that, right? Like I think it makes it very, very much possible. And so I do personally think that this is probably where they're going to go, because I'm trying to think of where you go next for The Ones Who Live season 2, or like a new series. And obviously there's reuniting with other characters, and there's probably going to be other story things that we don't know yet. They're probably going to introduce and Dead City or like Daryl Dixon season 2. Like we're just awaiting that. We're going to see where these spinoffs go, to see where the story could potentially go for like a season 2 of The Ones Who Live, or a new series, or whatever they plan to do, right? And I just think that some of the stuff with the CRM will most definitely play a role, right? Like the new state of the CRM. Mason Beale, that's Major General Beale's son. There's a lot of history there. I think in terms of writing, it would be I think it makes sense to actually include him in the story and have him in some way in the story, maybe where at first, Rick and Mason are like friends and stuff, and he's trying to teach Mason more of his ways, and it connects more with, I guess just some of the stuff in The Ones Who Live, where, there's flashbacks to what Rick and Major General Beale talked about certain things. And I just wonder if it's going to end tragically where Mason Beale actually does just kill Rick, right? I think that there's a way to do this all properly, and again, where it still honors Rick Grimes. I think you have all the reunions with all the other characters and all that still, and there's definitely a way to do this here. I think that my only concern about them doing a storyline like this is that, maybe they only make it 6 episodes, and then if that's the case, like it's gonna feel rushed, right? Like I really do think The Ones Who Live, I would have been happy with it if it was like even like 8 episodes. 10 I think would have been perfect for that story, but like 8 to 10 around there I think was perfect. 6 episodes, oh man, they really they rushed it really bad. But again, in the future they could still definitely, if they correct some of the storylines, if they make it very exciting, and The Walking Dead has done that in the past where storylines would end in a really bad way and people are like ranting and this and that, and then they would fix it in the next coming seasons where you're like, oh, okay, I guess I can see what you did there. Like it actually, like it makes sense now, right? The only decision that never really made sense, and I know they tried to fix it, was Carl's death, right? Like that's still to this day, yes, they did the time jump, and then obviously RJ is now a character, and they tried to do things here and there, but I just still think that that's the one where you're like, okay, that story choice was definitely a bad one, right? But yeah, I think that this is going to be the next part of the story. I really do. And again, I don't know if it's going to be in a season 2 or a new series. We're going to have to wait and see. I believe the next update's probably going to come at Comic-Con, so we'll have to wait and see there. I'm expecting them to be like, well, we're just sort of working on stuff. Hopefully, I have ideas. It's going to be basically like that, I'm expecting. But it's important to, ask these questions and all of that, just to sort of get an idea on what's going on. And then I think the next update would be at New York Comic-Con, which is in October. But who knows? Like I have no idea what to expect. And I think that's why Comic-Con is going to be very, very exciting, because, I don't know if Rick and Michonne are planning to return in like 5 years, or if it's going to be in like 2 years. Like I have no idea what the overall plan is. So judging based off of, what Scott Gimple says, and all of that's going to be very, very interesting. And that's why I can't wait for like Comic-Con and stuff like that, because we'll be able to know a lot more. And yeah, I just think that, you know, Rick Grimes' death by Mason Beale, I think makes sense for the ending of The Walking Dead and the ending of this whole arc. And I think they could actually do the comic arc properly now, and they could end all of this here in a really great way, where this could honestly be the end of this whole era here of The Walking Dead, right? Whether that's like variant walkers and you're including all of that and some of the stuff with like Daryl and Daryl Dixon, right? And Dead City and all of that. Like, you just have all of their stories sort of coming together in like this end game scenario, and then Mason Beale could be a part of it. And yeah, it just ends with Rick Grimes' death. And again, it'll have been like years and stuff since, you know, they've been together, so they've all sort of had like this like happy time together kind of thing, right? Like, they've actually been together for a while. When it comes to The Walking Dead, again, there's no way that the story is ever going to end in a peaceful, happy way. There's always going to be some sort of like bittersweet ending, and that's the thing with The Ones Who Live. It ended too happy, right? Like, everyone just kind of, I mean, everyone reunited. And obviously that was an amazing ending. That was an ending I wanted. A lot of people wanted. I just think going forward, if you're ever to introduce Rick and Michonne again, it's like, you're just, I don't know, it's a little bit too much. You know what I mean? Like, I just think that having them come around again and then they just leave and everything is just sort of all happy and this and that. Like, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. Personally, I really don't. And that's why I think that Rick Grimes' death is something that I know Andrew Lincoln most likely wants to do. He's been talking about that forever. You know, I think he wants to see how that character would die, and also just kind of play that part where you're sort of playing the end of that character, right? The end of that character's life and story. I think that would be so interesting to him. And again, I don't know when that's going to happen. You know, it might not be for another 5 years or something, but connecting it with Major General Beale's son, you know, I think would make The Ones Who Live season 1, or if that's the only series, matter more, right? It would make the whole storyline matter more. And I think a lot of people who are upset, like myself included, you know, about Major General Beale's death won't be that upset, because it actually mattered overall to the whole story, right? But anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. Definitely post your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.